So, hello there. Um, our topic tonight is unscripted. I literally have no notes, but this is just something that has been on my mind. So, I just want to touch on a few things. Specifically, if you're married, this will help you, but even if you're just in a relationship or you're considering going into a relationship, this is something that's really, really good to think about. And it is on the topic of money in marriage. Who manages the money? Um, for many people, because the husband is the head of the household, many people will argue that the man should control the money in the household. And while I can see that and some households function like that, is there an actual prescription that we can find in the Bible that says, thou male, thou husband must control the finances? Do we find that in the Bible? And some people would try to argue that with the husband being the head of the home. And what we often find is so many marriages, young couples, they go into their marriage and they try to aspire to that. They try to make their marriage in such a way that it can bring about contention, because the husband is adamant that he must control the finances, even if he's not responsible, even if he is not a breadwinner in the house. And so I want to preference this really quick. We can't be out of order on some things, but then we want to use the Bible in other things. The Bible is clear that the husband is the head of the home. And so we have to first align with that the husband needs to take leadership in the home, not being over dominant, if you will, abusive towards the wife, because then you're missing the whole point, because the Bible talks about how the husband is supposed to love the wife as Christ loved the church. The wife needs to be in alignment and come along beside the husband as a helpmeet. And I did say come along beside, because God took the woman from the rib, not from his back, neither from his feet. Okay. But we're back on finances. I'm gonna try to stay focused here because this is unscripted. But I want to share this, and I would love to hear your comments in the thread here, and let's respectfully dialogue, okay? Because it's not an all household, one size fits all household type of thing, because there are some scenarios where the wife is just more responsible. She's more financially astute. She has the business acumen, and she knows how to handle and manage the finances. And for many husbands, that does not bother his ego, his manhood, in no shape, form, or fashion. Like the Proverbs 31 woman, the husband can trust that his wife is going to manage well and make sure that they not only have surplus, but that they are generous, and that they're going to have the means, and she knows how to invest in all of those things, right? But if you are one of those who feel like you're the husband, you've got to control the money, and you're going to issue out the money to your wife like she's a toddler, and you're giving her a stipend. How does that work? If you're the wife and that happens, how does that make you feel? How does that work for you? And then when the children see that, is that something that they're going to want to emulate in their own marriages? And what kind of contention is that going to cause for them in their households? And so I want to submit this. Do what works best for your household, you and your husband, you and your mate. You sit down together and say, hey, if you're the husband and you struggle just doing basic math in school, you probably don't want to be the one in charge of the finances. If you know you're irresponsible and you're going to go out and you're going to gamble the money, you're going to waste it, you're going to cause your family to struggle and stuff, you may not be the person who needs to be in charge of the finances. And that's something that needs to be communicated between husband and wife. Not your mama them, not your brother them, your sister them, your cousin them, and none of them. It needs to be a discussion between you and your spouse, because you know what the goals are for your household. How are you going to be able to manage the finances that you have for your household? And then the last thing I will say, one of the reasons why this topic even came to mind for me is because I could not help but think about situations where women who don't work, they have no contribution to the household financially, or those women who do work and the male still controls all of the money. The concern for me is when there are households like that, and historically we've seen where women often suffer financially when domestic violence cases come up. And I'm not just talking about physical, I'm talking about verbal and mental and spousal abuse, where this husband is so controlling of the finances, and then if he just decides, he want to have his little fare on the side, or he just wants to up and leave her, he's going to leave her high and dry. And I think that's what really brought this up. As I was studying and doing some research, I started thinking about what happens to women when they've been in a marriage and the man has had his hands totally controlling. She doesn't know anything about the finances. Even if she works and all of her money and he controls it, he does not communicate anything to her. What happens to this woman when the man is just going to be dogmatic and he's not going to do right by her? Surely he's not a man of God for him to act in such a way. But it made me wonder and ask the question, why can't both sit down together and manage the finances together, make decisions together? That just seems like that would be a better fit for a better outcome. When one person totally, even if it's the wife and the husband knows nothing, he's clueless about it. It just seems like it sets the spouses or one of the spouses up to struggle, to fail, to just control and dominate everything. And as a woman, when I think about our girls and when I see domestic violence cases and so many women end up homeless, they're out on the street, and whether they worked and made money and they just had to hand it over to the controlling mate, or they were the ones that was working and they still had to hand things over to the controlling mate, or they just didn't have a contribution period because he didn't want her to work or she just didn't work. It's just concerning to see when women have nothing, they have no financial acumen, they don't know how to manage it. So I just think, and this was something that I'm planning to teach to some young girls in a financial class. And so I think in my research, my mind just got to going, like, who controls the money? And what happens when one person controls the money and the other person does not have the acumen? They don't know what's happening with the finances, how to manage it. Is it properly being managed? Do we see the benefit of it being managed? And what happens if one person is managing and they decide to leave the other person high and dry? And we see so many of our young people, our young girls, when domestic violence situations happen, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And this makes me think about how we operate in our marriages. And this is just my opinion. I just think those are some good conversations that we should be having. Number one, parents with our children. Number two, when our children are getting ready to date, they need to know, this person that is going to potentially be your mate. Have the discussion. Hey, how are we going to do the finances? If I'm going to work, are we going to make the decisions together? Are we going to sit at the table together and talk about the finances? Or here's the other thing. Are you going to manage your finances? I'm going to manage my finances, and we'll just bring what we're going to contribute to the pot and let it be that way, because that's an issue in some marriages. My marriage, everything is one, but that may not work for my children in their relationships, their marriage. It may not work for your children in their marriages. Some people need to keep it separate, while some of us choose, hey, we're in this thing together. The two became one, so we put in everything, because there are not going to be any secret accounts and all of that. But for some people, that works best for their marriage. You have to know what works best for your marriage. But if you're a young lady on here, whether you're dating, married, whatever the case, you need to always make sure, and I'm encouraging you of this as a woman, you need to always make sure that you are financially stable, able, and capable of managing, whether you're the person in charge in your marriage or your relationship, or whether you are on your own. You need to know, so that should things happen, should things go wrong, what is your plan to provide for yourself? If you're a spouse, if you're a man, you need to consider that, and you need to teach your sons the same thing. But ultimately, we need to make sure that we're treating each other fairly. If it's spouse, male, you should not want your wife, the mother of your children, out here struggling with the children, and you've left her high and dry with nothing, no care about if they eat, if they got a roof over their head, lights, transportation, all of the things. If you're that woman, you need to make sure that you manage what you have been given charge over. Save something, put something to the side. Tell me your comments. I would love to hear what you think about this topic. What works best for you? The two becoming one and managing together, or we just gonna keep it all separate? I'm gonna manage mine, you gonna manage yours. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.